Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about some cards that sound strong without context. So one of these cards, we have Rusty Bardiche. Bardiche sounds completely insane. All we require for Fam Knights of Rusty Bardiche is 2+ Dark Monsters, and if you don't read into it too hard, uh, Fam Knights of Rusty Bardiche is a somewhat generic Dark Link monster, which allows you to send a Fam Knights monster from your deck to the graveyard, as well as setting a Fam Knight spell trap directly from your deck to your spell and trap zone. So if we just look at this standalone, with just that effect, we're able to set a Fog Blade from our deck and then send from our deck a Fam Knights of Silent Boots or a Fam Knights of Ancient Cloak. If we send Ancient Cloak, we can add Silent Boots, and since we have a Bardiche on field, we can just special summon Silent Boots. Or we can just directly send Silent Boots if we don't have any way to link off a added Silent Boots. Then we can use Silent Boots effect to add another Fog Blade to our hand, and then we can set this. Or if we have like some more extension, we could technically add the Fam Knights of Shade Brigandine, and then we can set this, special summon this, and then it's just another body. Which sounds insane. Being just like a generic Link 3 that can kind of do this, well, somewhat generic, right? And we also have this other effect here. If a Dark XYZ monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to while this monster is on the field, except during the turn step, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. So technically, if a Dark XYZ monster is special summoned at all, doesn't have to be XYZ summoned, this can trigger the Fam Knights of Rusty Bardiche here. And that also sounds pretty cracked, except then you realize, oh wait, you would have to do this on your opponent's turn. So what Dark XYZ monster, outside of like Phantom Knights, can you possibly summon? Well, the correct answer is a Raid Raptor one. And aside from that, I don't think there's anything else that's going to be summoning XYZ monsters on your opponent's turn for the most part. To your own zone, and specifically a dark one at that. And then also, Rusty Bardiche cannot be used as link material, so we can't use Rusty Bardiche to link climb, unfortunately. Because otherwise we'd be able to, technically, since we don't get locked at all here, we could have done the Fam Knights of Rusty Bardiche summons Fam Knights of Silent Boots, and then we can link this off for Apollosa if it didn't have that line, and then we would have two monster negates on an Apollosa and then two Fog Blades, which are also monster negates, which is pretty cracked. Well, the only downside, I guess, to Fam Knight's Fog Blade is that we can't negate things that tribute themselves for cost or anything like that. We have to negate things on the field pretty hard. So we wouldn't be able to negate a D-Lotus, which is a bit unfortunate, but yeah, for the most part, this seems pretty cracked. Then we go more into the details. This doesn't send from your hand or anything, and we also have to have a Fam Knight spell trap to set. If we do not, then yeah, running out of targets is a big problem, and there's no recycling in this deck. So yeah, that's pretty miserable, I suppose. But just in archetype, this is pretty cracked. Outside of the archetype, you're running a bunch of garnets. So at minimum, if we're running this small of a package, this isn't enough for consistency reasons. We should probably play one more Fam Knight spell trap and then one more Fam Knights card. So probably a second Silent Boots or something. Or we can just throw in a copy of Ragged Gloves, which is fine as well. But yeah, for the most part, this is suffering. But as a follow-up play, I guess, if Fam Knights of Rusty Bardiche is in the graveyard, we can bring it back with the Fog Blade for next turn and then use its effect again. So our boy here, Rusty Bardiche, is a bit sticky, you know? He's hard to get rid of. And, well, if we just didn't look at this card too deeply, this would be 2 monster negates plus a potential body. But if we look at everything, I guess, then this is a card that cannot be linked off, so we can't use this to really link climb. But it is still like 2 monster negates, although these monster negates don't work on necessarily everything. It works on most things, but you know, that's still a downside. A little bit worse than Imperm. But I mean, technically, against the Lotus, we would still be able to negate the Spirit of Yubel, so we have that going for us. But then it can just be used as fusion material to make Phantom of Yubel, which is a bit annoying. But next thing Found Knights of Rusty Bardiche has going for it is it's pretty good removal, because this removes not just monsters but also spells and traps. It's just destroy any card on the field, including yours, if it is relevant. So one thing you could technically do, although I doubt anyone would do this, is we can pop a Scythe with this, and then we can special summon Scythe because we popped it, right? So that's a thing, I guess. You might think, oh, that combo's gross or whatever, but no, actually, I've already done an experimentation on that, and it's so inefficient, you're just better off not doing it at all, because of the requirements to actually pull that off being pretty disgusting. But that aside, you have to run all these garnets that you don't want to see. So if I have Found Knight's Fogblade in hand, that would be better off as something else, right? So this is going to be the same idea as if we run Bonfire and Poplar and Snake Eye Ash, right? So we never want to see Poplar in our hand. We're okay with seeing Snake Eye Ash or the Bonfire, but if we have the Poplar in hand, we can't use Poplar's effect. So in this case, it would be Bardiche needing to set a spell trap. So if we open both of these, we can't even do the effect Ascend. Or if we open one of these, it's still bad because we would have been able to search both either way. So we would have just much preferred having neither of them in hand. And also, we don't want these guys in hand either. We want them in deck, so we never want to realistically see these guys in hand unless we search them. So that's another downside. These are not like really bad garnets, because these are still monster negates even without going into Bardiche or any Found Knights cards. Monster negates are monster negates, I suppose. More or less an imperm. But yeah, for consistency reasons, not great. And also, if we look ahead to like turn 5, turn 6, turn 10, like if the duel goes on that long, this Bardiche doesn't have any mileage anymore. It doesn't really do anything. That's why if we were to compare to Promethean Princess, which is like, I guess, kind of generic fire support, this outclasses Bardiche by an insane margin. So first off, we don't have to run any main deck garnets. We're just running our archetypal cards and whatnot, and we're fine with the Promethean Princess. Promethean Princess is also still relevant 20 turns later into the duel. If this gets special summoned, you can just bring back any of your guys. So in this case, I'm assuming you probably have a fire extra deck monster worth bringing back with Promethean Princess. So that's relevant. And then its effect to destroy cards whenever card is specifically special summoned to your opponent's field. Doesn't have to be your opponent summoning it. That will be relevant as well. And it would be probably still relevant like 100 turns later, but Bardiche would have ran out of targets or have been banished by your Found Knight's Fogblade, like, I don't know, by somewhere around turn 4, 5, or 6. So not as much mileage here. So Bardiche, the idea with Bardiche is you want to wrap up the duel pretty quick if you summon Bardiche, essentially. And that is a legit concern you should have. So yeah, that kind of sucks, I guess. And then Promethean Princess has no such restriction. Promethean Princess is also optional, so you don't even have to like worry about locking yourself out if that's something to worry about. There's just a lot going for Promethean Princess in general, and the grind on this card is pretty crazy. So Found Knights of Rusty Bardiche kind of wish it would pop off harder. But now that I think about it, a ruling question. So let's assume I control, let's say, an SP Little Knight, and I control a Found Knights of Rusty Bardiche. but specifically the Bardiche I currently control was summoned back with Fogblade. Fogblade says, special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. So if we use SP Little Knight's effect to banish the Fam Knights of Rusty Bardiche, does my Bardiche still come back? Truly a question I do not know the answer to, but whatever. Yeah, the Fam Knights of Rusty Bardiche sounds like pretty cracked without the full context, but the more context you have, the more mid this card becomes. So, not good in grind, requires dark monsters, but the positive on this is it doesn't say affect monsters, and it's pretty easy to just go IP, link off two guys, and just have one actual dark monster for your Bardiche, and then you make Bardiche that way, and it's also not destructible, which is just a small plus side we have from summoning IP. Doesn't super matter though. So there are little benefits here and there. And of course, the other benefit being these monster negates are not just ordinary monster negates, these are specifically spell trap monster negates, which plays around triple tactics, talents, and thrust, but which is one thing that Bardiche really has going for it. So I suppose maybe in a meta where thrust and triple tactics talents becomes really prevalent, then Bardiche probably goes pretty hard. So in archetype though, Bardiche also goes pretty hard because we can summon Fam Knights of Breaksword, and then we can destroy Breaksword if it is special summoned in one of the zones that Bardiche points to. You can destroy Breaksword, and this will summon two Fam Knights monsters with the same level in our graveyard, special summoning them and increasing their levels by 1, allowing us to go into a rank 4. So that's how we go into Dark XYZ Dragon. And then with Dark XYZ Dragon, we can go into Dark XYZ Requiem, I think, right? Dark Requiem XYZ Dragon, which is basically Apollousa on crack. That's one way to look at this. So the primary effect that we care about is this one. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can detach one material from this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then you can special summon a XYZ monster from your graveyard. So this effect doesn't really matter that much if we can activate it or not. But the thing about this is that this negates activation like Apollousa, but it destroys the card and doesn't just negate it. And then, do you notice anything odd about this? Oh, right. There's no hard once per turn on this. No once per chain, no once per nothing. So, just for example, if on our Dark Requiem XYZ Dragon, we had 40 materials, and our opponent went to chain link 80 with us, we could negate every part of that chain with just Dark Requiem XYZ Dragon alone. Which, I mean, this would never happen, but just conceptually pretty crazy, right? And then we have the other guy, which I don't think this triggers on... Well, does it? I don't think it triggers, right? XYZ Dragon... This doesn't trigger on summon, I don't think. It's ignition. Yeah, detach one material from this card and negate effects of all other face-up monsters on the field. So, that sure is a guy. Not much to say about that one, I guess. But just in general, we do have removal every single turn if we do maintain our Bardiche, which is why it's really good in Phantom Knights. But outside of Phantom Knights, yeah, these are all Garnets, and if you're playing this outside of Phantom Knights, that means you're doing something else with your main deck, and it would have more than just Phantom Knights. So if we had a load of Phantom Knights, I can see Bardiche being pretty cracked. If we don't, we'll run out of targets pretty quickly, or we'll open the targets and then not have enough targets for Bardiche. So, pretty awkward in that case, if that does come up. So, let's go with one more cracked card. that's kind of just, well, it looks cracked, but it's really not as bad as it, well, it's not as good as it seems. So we'll go with Muckraker. So Muckraker, this card seems insane, but it's unfortunately really not that insane. So we have, if a monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you contribute 1 fiend monster instead. And we have, you can target 1 fiend monster in your graveyard except Muckraker from the Underworld, discard 1 card, and if you do, special summon that monster. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except for fiend monsters. So Muckraker can essentially special summon any fiend monster in your graveyard, although you're locked now into fiend monsters. And we do have this downside, which is not that big of a deal actually. Cannot be used as link material the turn it is link summoned. So if we're insane enough, we can use Muckraker as fusion material or XYZ material turn it is link summoned, which is pretty absurd to think about, but you can do that, and it only requires 2 effect monsters to summon. So we could use Ash Blossom Joy Spring and Ash Blossom Joy Spring to summon Muckraker if we really wish to. This effect here seems pretty cracked. If a monster you control would be destroyed by a battle or a card effect, you contribute 1 fiend monster instead. Well, the issue with this, if you're getting Raigeki'd, Muckraker doesn't protect anything. It can also protect itself, but not against Raigeki, which I absolutely don't understand. If a monster or monsters you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you contribute 1 fiend monster instead. So we could technically tribute any fiend monster off the field, but okay, Muckraker just doesn't protect, well, your guys, I guess. One thing you might not have noticed about this effect is this protects all monsters, not just fiends. You just have to tribute a fiend. So, for example, if I have a Baron de Flora and Muckraker, if my opponent attempts to destroy my Baron by battle, I can protect it with Muckraker by tributing Muckraker. Just for example. And yeah, Muckraker doesn't do that much. Somehow, some way. Muckraker kind of just exists, I guess. And then, I guess I have one other somewhat generic card that we might as well talk about. So we have the First Darklord. So the First Darklord, this card looks pretty cracked, so we need 3 Dark Fairy monsters. And then your opponent cannot target fairy monsters you control with card effects. You can only use one of the following effects with the First Darklord per turn and only once that turn. If this card is fusion summoned using Darklord Morningstar as material, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. During the main phase quick effect, you can pay 1,000 life points special summon any fairy monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position. So let's go over the positives of the First Darklord. So first things first, we can use this to board wipe, and it's a board wipe on only our opponents. So we can look at this as a one-way Zeus, because it's removing all cards our opponent controls for the most part. And then we have the ability to, every single turn, special summon any fairy monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position, including itself. So if we had 3 First Darklords, our opponent outs 1, we just summon that one right back. And if they out another one, we just, well, once again, summon it right back. The downsides now, wait, one downside immediately, we can't use both of these effects on the same turn. So if we want to use the destruction effect, we can't use the effect to summon back a guy, which is pretty annoying. And positive. Now we'll go back to the positives. Your opponent cannot target fairy monsters you control with card effects, so that's every single fairy monster you control, doesn't matter the attribute. And this includes, of course, the First Darklord, making it untargetable. Now, back to the downsides. It requires 3 Dark Fairy monsters to make. So, card seems cracked, but of course, there's a downside. If we look at Dark Fairies, there are, like, literally no good Dark Fairies, unfortunately. In terms of Dark Fairies, we have Purpura Lily. So somehow one of the best Dark Fairies is Per Lily. And then we have Aluber, Thespian Tragedy, and then the Darklord archetype. So until we get a good Dark Fairy archetype or something, we're not going to be able to do much. And we could say that like maybe Branded is good, or even just, you know, the Despian cards are good, but they're actually so limited. You're getting Giga Shafted. So it's not as bad now that we're at 2 opening to a Luber. But yeah, it was pretty bad, I guess. Well, actually, even now it's still not that great having just these guys. Because Branded opening and a Luber, I guess we were better off with a lot more of them. So yeah, we're pretty miserable looking at this, I'd say. The first Darklord, though, pretty cool boss monster, pretty cool art, but yeah, getting this out is pretty hard. And also, this condition here, kind of forgot to mention this, but we also need to have Darklord Morningstar as a material for this, so that would require us to generally be in the possession of Morningstar, whether it's potentially in the graveyard and or field, for us to actually use it as a material to summon the first Darklord. And then, of course, we have to be able to summon the first Darklord by whatever means. So if we have a Luber, we could maybe use Branded in red. Let's see, fusion summon a level 8 or higher fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand or field, but cannot attack directly this turn. So that would work for summoning the first Darklord. Downside, we banished all the Dark Fairies using this. So we have nothing to really special summon back with the first Darklord. Also, it requires 3 Dark Fairy monsters. So this requires like a Guardian Chimera's worth of materials, which is kind of bad in a sense, but with this effect it would offset it, except that this effect is only if we use Darklord Morningstar as material, which makes that a bit harder, and then we also have to run Morningstar. So assuming we're not playing like fully Darklords, we just want to summon the first Darklord, then yeah, this falls off harder and harder. And you might think, oh, that this would be great to play with my fairy deck because, you know, all my guys would be not targetable. Good luck making this. 3 Dark Fairies required. And then also, you have to somehow fusion summon. And there's no good way to randomly just generically fusion summon just a guy. So, yeah. Not looking that great. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.